it's also important to point out the former president is married to an immigrant who just did a naturalization ceremony at the National Archives.
And that is Fox anchor Bret Baier trying to downplay Donald Trump's echoing of Adolf Hitler. According to Baier, it doesn't make sense.
So there's a disconnect there if that's the dog whistle he's sending. Some people are saying it is, but other people are saying it's just the words he chose.
They're poisoning the blood of our country. That's what they've done. They poison mental institutions and prisons all over the world, not just in South America, not just the 3 or 4 countries that we think about, but all over the world. They're coming into our country from Africa, from Asia, all over the world. They're pouring into our country. Nobody's even looking at them.
To use that phrase, poisoning the blood, that really got under the skin of a lot of people, even his supporters. Is any sign that anybody in his campaign is going to try to answer that?
Not really. I think, listen, it's the word he chose. I think it raised a lot of eyebrows, not only on the Democratic side, but in Republican circles. Obviously, it harkens back to some writings, and it's been written about in numerous articles.
Time out, Bret. It doesn't just harken back to some writings, and it hasn't just been written about in numerous articles, as you say. Poisoning the blood of our country was one of Adolf Hitler's talking points. Why wouldn't you say that? Straight out, Donald Trump channeled Adolf Hitler. Trump might as well have quoted Hitler's book, Mein Kampf. What kept you from reporting that, Bret? Are you afraid of making Trump angry and losing your access? Here's the full Hitler quote. All the great civilizations of the past became decadent because the originally creative race died out as a result of contamination of the blood. Bret, for you to avoid mentioning Hitler and discussing Trump's remarks, well, that omission is outrageous. But your career at Fox has long been full of omissions and currying favor with conservatives. More on that in a moment. Over on CNN, a Republican member of Congress also tried to downplay and diminish Trump's use of the Hitler rhetoric. Here is New York Republican Nicole Maliotakis of New York talking to CNN host Abby Phillips.
Is Trump right that immigrants are poisoning the blood of this country?
Well, I don't think that's what he was saying. When he said they are poisoning, I think he was talking about the Democratic policies. I think he was talking about the open border policy.
But he was pretty clear. He was saying that the immigrants who are coming in, he says they're poisoning the blood of the nation. He says
never said immigrants are poisoning, though.
He's talking about people coming
I
across
honestly
the
think
border
it was
in the
being,
quote we just played it.
Yeah, and he said he didn't say the words the immigrants. I think he was talking about the Democratic policies.
He was talking about people,
okay, well, look,
not policies.
I don't,
he was talking about people.
Look, I know that some are trying to make it seem like President Trump is anti-immigrant. The reality is he was married to immigrants. He's hired immigrants. I mean, he's not.
Yes, Trump married an immigrant from Eastern Europe, so he couldn't possibly be anti-immigrant. Congresswoman Maliotakis is channeling Bret Baier, or vice versa, and it's nonsense.
That Trump continuously, repeatedly uses this rhetoric that now, maybe you could say the first time he didn't know the references, the parallels to authoritarians, he knows now. Why does he keep saying it over and over again?
Well, look, I just think he's trying to bring attention to the issue.
He's using the rhetoric of authoritarians to bring attention to this issue?
I think what the important thing is we need to pay attention to this issue. I mean, look, let's admit what's going on here in this country.
Okay, let's admit it. What's going on in our country is that a presidential frontrunner for a major U.S. political party is quoting Adolf Hitler, describing immigrants as vermin, planning huge camps, and intending to purge the government of workers who do not hate the way he does.
Trump is using the rhetoric of Hitler and Mussolini to make a point about people coming across the border illegally. Don't you think that's a bit of a distraction?
I disagree. I disagree with what you're saying. I just fundamentally disagree. I think what he was saying is that the Democratic policies, the policies of this administration.
No, Donald Trump was not talking about the policies. He was talking about the people coming across the border.
They're poisoning the blood of our country. That's what they've done. They poison mental institutions and prisons all over the world, not just in South America, not just the 3 or 4 countries that we think about, but all over the world. They're coming into our country from Africa, from Asia, all over the world. They're pouring into our country. Nobody's even looking at them. They just come in.
They are coming into our country. Trump is talking about undocumented migrants, illegal immigrants. He isn't talking about a policy. And for a member of Congress to try and say otherwise is absurd. Now, I get that New York Republican Nicole Maliotakis is a relative backbencher. She is not in GOP leadership, so maybe we shouldn't focus on her. But Bret Baier is a main anchor on Fox, the cable channel that the Republican Party worships and bows down to. And for Baier to dismiss Trump's rhetoric or suggest Trump couldn't really be denigrating immigrants because, well, Trump is married to one, well, that's just journalistic malfeasance. But that is how Bret Baier rolls at Fox. He mutes facts that hurt Republicans, and he has sometimes literally tried to change reality. Most recently, as reported by Poynter, back in November of 2020, Fox News' Bret Baier, often touted as one of the network's straight news reporters, was ready to give in to then President Donald Trump was pressuring the network to rescind calling the state of Arizona for Joe Biden. This is according to a new book, The Divider, Trump in the White House, 2017 to 2021, written by New York Times reporter Peter Baker and New Yorker staff writer and CNN Global Affairs analyst Susan Glazer. According to the book, Baier wrote an email to Jay Wallace, the president and executive editor of Fox News, that said, the Trump campaign was really pissed. This situation is getting uncomfortable, really uncomfortable. I keep having to defend this on the air. He accused Fox News' decision desk of holding on for pride, according to the book. The book went on to say that Baier wrote in his email, it's hurting us. The sooner we pull it, even if it gives us major egg and we put it back in his column, the better we are, in my opinion. What's odd is Fox News never put Arizona in the win column for Trump. Baker and Glazer called it stunning, adding, the leading news anchor for Fox was pushing not just to say Arizona was too close to call, but to pretend that the president had won it. As it turned out, Fox News' call was correct. Biden won Arizona. Baier claims his internal emails were taken out of context, but the book authors stand by their reporting. Also, it's a bit rich for Baier to insist journalists provide full context when Baier himself cuts corners, simplifies, and ignores context when it helps Fox's business success and pans Baier's fortunes. Why wouldn't Bret Baier mention Donald Trump and Adolf Hitler in the same segment? To be clear, it is possible that Trump has never read Hitler's books. Trump is clearly not a student of history, as even his former White House staffers underscore.
I think it's highly unlikely that Donald Trump's ever read Mein Kampf. I think the reality is what we have is that the left continues to attack him for something outrageous he says, but it continues to drive the issue back to border security, which is what he wants to be talking about.
And even Trump's top GOP presidential rival says most Americans are not consumed with Donald Trump's rhetoric, no matter who Trump quotes.
You guys are exhausting. You're exhausting in your obsession with him. The thing is, the normal people aren't obsessed with Trump like you guys are.
Even CNN reported that a significant number of Republican voters agree with Trump's incendiary rhetoric and authoritarian-like plans.
Giant camps, mass deportations, well, 50% support that. Root out the vermin, 43% support that. Immigrants are poisoning the blood of America, 42%.
That analysis reveals as much about the state of the Republican Party as it reveals about Donald Trump. But even that kind of smart, insightful critique is too much for Bret Baier. The Fox anchor prefers to dumb things down or keep things simplistic, perhaps so Baier can relate. Deep, thoughtful, and fact-based analysis is too much for Bret Baier and the Fox News audience. In other words, Baier and Trump are playing in the same intellectually shallow and poisonous cesspool. And they are helping each other, diminishing our democracy and making our society more uninformed and more dangerous. That is a horrible legacy for a politician, and it's even worse for a self-proclaimed newsman. By the way, Bret Baier's former colleague at Fox, Megyn Kelly, is getting crushed after absurdly attacking Taylor Swift.
She owes Israelis and Jewish Americans an apology, and I hope they boycott her events until she issues it.
Check out that video at the link below. I'm David Shuster. Thanks for joining us.